The Weeknd is easily one of the most influential artists of the 21st century, and I truly mean that. Without House of Balloons, R&B wouldn't have the edge it has currently. Not only that though, but as of recent, he was the biggest reason for the 80s comeback we've had. It's to the point where Blinding Lights is very likely going to become regarded as the biggest hit of all time, a feat others will struggle to overcome. While his music has been topping the charts for over half a decade at this point, it's strange to think that a lot of his work has been overlooked and written off. I mean, Kissland is barely at over 500 million streams, with none of the songs even hitting 100 million. That isn't the subject matter of this video though. Instead, we have to go back farther into his career, right after he released the iconic mixtape I previously mentioned, House of Balloons. That mixtape is more widely regarded as a masterpiece in comparison to the other two he released in that same exact year. And although others may claim Trilogy, the album that combines all three mixtapes into a single record, adding several tracks and remastering the older songs, is a 10, I'm not sure that they're giving the other two mixtapes their proper credit. In my personal opinion, Thursday is not only the mixtape with the least amount of praise, but it's the one that deserves it the most. I like to think of it similarly to Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Don't get me wrong, if House of Balloons didn't exist, then the other records wouldn't have sounded even remotely similar. However, its shortcomings in its production and songs are too difficult to ignore, and I say this as a huge fan of it. Echoes of Silence, on the other hand, while the production quality has improved drastically, it has a completely different vibe to House of Balloons, and in my opinion, isn't nearly as memorable. And again, I really like these projects. Thursday, however, is the perfect middle ground, with no songs I'd actively consider as bad or forgettable, the much better production over his previous project, while still keeping the same general formula of Abel's tragic life. And there's no better proof of this than what very well might be his magnum opus, The Birds. This is a two-part song that had the name inspired by either the horror novel or movie of the same title, although that very well may be a coincidence since the movie has no similarities to the songs, at least in my personal research, as my pea-brain can barely sit through a movie. Wikipedia, God bless you. But back to the music itself, this very well might be my favorite set of two songs I've ever heard, both from The Weeknd and overall. If you were to just look up the lyrics on Genius, not only would you be getting incorrect information because god fucking damn it says along not your luck, you can hear the end, you had one job and you fucked it up the end, but you can never truly understand the story and emotions of the song without listening to it. Either before, which is what I personally want, or after the video, I want you to give these two songs a listen. Try and take them in and then return. That is, if you haven't heard these two songs before. I'll give you a chance to pause this video right now, but for everyone else, maybe like and subscribe while you're just sitting here. It'd mean a lot to me, and it's free. Okay, you're back now. Awesome. So these are quite easily the darkest songs Abel has ever recorded. The title was no joke, and if you couldn't understand everything that was happening on the first listen, then I will gladly help you decipher what's going on. Again, Genius doesn't do these songs justice, so let me begin with The Birds Part 1. Now, I want to say beforehand that this might be my favorite song of all time. I cannot point out a single flaw with this song. Its execution, its production, everything to my ears couldn't possibly be better. It begins like a majority of Abel's earlier work by him acting like a stone-cold sex god, telling this girl that he's not gonna care if she falls for him, sternly repeating the sentiment in the chorus as well. Again, this song is deceptively simple, at least in the beginning. I also want you to pay attention to how he's referring to this girl because it will become very important to understanding the intricacies of this work. In the second verse, his tone begins to slowly change from calm and collected to letting his emotions get the best of him, negating what he claimed to be before. This isn't shown in the lyrics at first, it's all within his vocal delivery, which, by the way, might be the best in his entire career over these two songs. Then, when the chorus hits, everything gets so much louder as if he's getting into your head, giving you the same feeling of being overwhelmed as both he and the girl are dealing with. He's pleading as loudly as he can, even slightly changing the lyrics from the first rendition of the chorus. Instead of giving a stern warning, he removes the "so" in front of the first line, crying out to prevent a similar event that happened previously, which we will get to. In the bridge, he admits that he knows it's too late, trying to get the girl to admit to her catching feelings for him. Then the loud instrumental comes to a halt, only replaced by the soft guitar strings plucking away as The Weeknd is mourning over this girl, almost in a state of denial. Now you may be asking, why do you think he's mourning? Well, that's because that girl is dead. The impact of both songs are because of the full picture. While yes, The Birds Part 1 can easily stand alone and you can interpret the story a bit differently if you just listen to that song repeatedly, like I did for several months, but that's besides the point. The Birds Part 2 is where the story becomes a true tragedy, painting the song in much darker hues than before. Now, if I do want to talk about the full picture, I should at least mention that there is technically an unreleased interlude for The Birds. Now, I'm only bringing it up because while there is no released version of it, it was played on tour shows in the anniversary edition of Memento Mori.
I've been getting a lot of requests to play The Birds interlude. Unfortunately, that song was exclusively made for the live trilogy tour, and the only version that exists is the version we have on YouTube, so I will be playing that version instead.
I think tour shows are kind of where it needed to stay, as it's a bit on the nose and just repeats a lot of stuff in The Birds Part 1 and The Birds Part 2. Mainly 2. Now on to that second song. The Birds Part 2 is what makes this the darkest in his discography. From the first few seconds, you know you're in for some messed up stuff. That's because you hear a girl sobbing before... Yeah. She shoots someone. This leads into Abel repeating the phrase that I cannot say on screen in a fashion as if he was in denial, which, once you've heard the song once, it hurts all the more. The instrumental, in comparison to the loud, blaring drums and guitar of The Birds Part 1, is much more quiet. It implies that this isn't him actively trying to prevent something from happening, but the event already happened. The deeds have been done, and he's just saying what happened. One of his former sexual partners walks in on him with another girl, presumably about to have sex. She begs him not to do anything with her yet until she falls out of love. She's on drugs, as implied when she hands Abel said drugs as something to bargain with in order to keep him away from this other woman. He refuses, turning away from her. Then, he gets shot in the back by his former partner. Before she can do anything to his current lover, said current lover shoots her, presumably killing her. Abel wails as she says her final words, quote, "It won't be long till I fall out of love." I cannot undersell the vocals for this song. It will tear you apart from how broken he is. And here's where I told you to pay attention to how he's referring to this girl. You see, in the first part of The Birds, he refers to this girl as you. However, in the first verse of The Birds Part 2, he refers to her as she. And now, he's referring to this girl back to you. This implies that the girl in the beginning of The Birds Part 2 was a different lover than the girl in The Birds Part 1 in the second verse of The Birds Part 2. The former likely being a lover before the one he's dealing with now. Too Long Didn't Listen, the girl in The Birds Part 1 and the end of The Birds Part 2 are the same girl. The girl in the beginning of The Birds Part 2 is different. Understood? Good. Also, Abel is saying fucking bleeding, not pleading. It literally doesn't make sense if it's fucking pleading. Genius, go suck a fat. He lights a cigarette, reassures himself that he's just a bird, and as I said before, now it transitions to be about the girl from The Birds Part 1. The girl is upset at him, now not letting Abel get any of the sexy ones. He said he already warned her that he wasn't the one for her, and it becomes obvious that this girl is soon to no longer be with us. Now is when the song has a lot of interpretations, specifically who has caused her to bleed. It wasn't a third party like last time, however we know at the very least that this girl had a gun, considering the line "nobody forced your hand," and then after said line it becomes obvious that this girl is already dead. The Weeknd is repeating these things to himself almost to rationalize the actions that had just occurred. Either he had to shoot her, Or, in a sadder case, she shot herself to not have to witness Abel being with other women. Now, why are these songs actually named The Byrds, and what is that sample in The Byrds Part 2? Him calling himself a bird just means that he's free to do as he pleases, but I'm sure you probably guessed that. The primary sample used in The Byrds Part 2 is You're Gonna Leave by Martina Topley Bird. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Okay, hi, text from the future here. I just wanted to state the fact that the lyrics were slightly changed in order to fit the song better. Instead of saying just a girl, Abel says, which apparently this is his voice, re-singing it, he says just a bird. That's all I wanted to say. Things that are supposed to be good turn sour, and you're just gonna end up leaving in the end, no matter what happens before. That you're just a bird. In the outro of the song, he repeats the phrase, just a bird, to reassure himself that he doesn't actually care about these people. Then, all you hear is a note repeating itself, living with the consequences until you're fully enveloped into the bird mentality, or become a victim of the birds yourself. Now, I want to briefly mention the fact that I'm discussing primarily the original mixes for these songs instead of the remastered versions for Trilogy. If I'm talking about these songs, I need to talk about both versions and their differences. While I do heavily prefer the originals, I don't mind which ones you enjoy more. I give the edge more to the mixtape versions due to it sounding much more raw. The remasters focus way too heavily on the vocals, lessening the instrumentals to make way for it. The singing even sounds a bit off and less emotional without the sound overwhelming you. This is obviously more evident in The Byrds Part 1, but even in The Byrds Part 2, the vocals sound off. The sample's vocals are also much clearer, which I don't like. It's missing the magic of the originals, and I say that as someone who had only heard the Trilogy versions up until the re-release of the original Thursday. Now you know why, as a whole, I believe that The Byrds is just an absolute masterpiece. No matter what version you listen to, it's just amazing. I'm gonna cherish it for years and years and years and years and years, and I really hope I put some of you onto these songs. I really do. That's kind of the point of this video, and if I didn't, then all my work will probably have gone down the drain, and we don't want that to happen, right? Right. And that concludes my mini essay on The Byrds. If you like this video, like it, subscribe, maybe even tell me how you felt about this video in the comments below. I haven't made a video about a musical topic in a while, however, people on my Twitter seem to want it, so here I am. Anyways, hope you enjoyed. See ya.